When Donald Trump won the 2024 election, I was really hoping that we would never have to listen to another Trump campaign ever again. But of course, I'm no fool. I understood that we would never make it through a second Trump administration without Donald Trump getting out there on the stump, ranting and raving like a madman, because this is what Donald Trump does. This is how he gets his MAGA following to buy into his conspiracy worldview. And unfortunately for us, it has been effective for him. This is how he stays relevant. So even though he is the president of the United States and he should be hard at work trying to bring down prices and make America great for all Americans, this is what we can expect from Donald Trump. He will be in campaign mode nearly all of the time. So let's go ahead and take a look. Here's Donald Trump is just casually floating the idea of a third term. No big deal.
I don't know how anybody could even vote for the other side. In many cases, they don't, but they do get credit for it. You'll have to think about that. I've raised a lot of money for the next race that I assume I can't use for myself, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't know. I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again, Mike? I better not get you involved in that argument.
So I know this might sound like a joke to many people that are watching, but this is what Donald Trump does. This is how he plants new ideas into the minds of his followers. And they keep on hearing it over and over and over again. And then we have people like Andy Ogles who are introducing constitutional amendments to make it possible for Donald Trump to run for a third term and serve a third term. So it is a bit more pernicious than it might seem. He introduces ideas, he hammers on them over and over again, and then eventually people are warmed up to the idea and they just don't think it's a big deal. And this is how we have got where we are today. All of these little things here and there, Donald Trump pushes over and over and over and over and over and over again, even though they're lies, and then people buy them hook, line, and sinker. It's an absolute shame. That is why we have to push back on this type of stuff. Here he is talking about how we are now living in a true meritocracy. No joke, guys. True meritocracy.
60 years of prejudice and hatred with the signing of one order, all approved by the Supreme Court of the United States. It was a big thing, and the United States has become a meritocracy again. We are a country that's based now on merit for success. Merit. If you're good at what you do, you're going to go places.
So obviously it is laughable to think that right now we are living in a true meritocracy. But Donald Trump is playing to a feeling that his base has. They want to live in a world where your merit gets you places. Even though Donald Trump is probably one of the most corrupt presidents that this country has ever seen, he is able to use this type of rhetoric because he knows this is the type of world that his base claims to want to live in. And so we're going to continue to hear crazy stuff like this, even when he is hiring people like Pete Hegseth, who are dangerously unqualified to be like a Secretary of Defense, or people like RFK, who is a ardent vaccine denialist, and he is up for Health and Human Services. This is not a meritocracy we are living in. We are living in a world where loyalty to Trump is what matters most. So, although we know it's not true that the meritocracy is reigning supreme right now, this is why Donald Trump likes to use this type of rhetoric, because he knows this is something that animates his base. So he will continue to repeat it over and over and over again. Here he is talking about people seeking asylum. Let's see if he can get the definition right this time.
I always felt the border was first, because I felt that people could really understand that you can't have people pouring in from the prisons all over the world and from mental institutions all over the world and dumped into our country. So I talked about that much more so than I did inflation.
Donald Trump does not understand the difference between somebody seeking asylum in our country and something like a mental asylum. And this is something that we heard all the way up to the 2024 election. He kept on repeating this over and over and over again. And now I would bet that if you asked much of the MAGA base, they would tell you that countries all over the world are entering emptying their prisons, their mental asylums, right here into the United States of America. This is another way for Donald Trump to dehumanize these people. This is another way for the MAGA base to be able to point at somebody and blame their problems on. So, of course, Donald Trump is going to keep on talking about it, even though he truly does not understand that there might be two separate meanings for the word asylum. Donald Trump then goes on to talk about how he's just going to start implementing tariffs on semiconductors. Sounds like a real great idea, Donnie.
Plans put together. In particular, in the very near future, we're going to be placing tariffs on foreign production of computer chips, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals to return production of these essential goods to the United States of America. They left us and they went to Taiwan, which is about 98% of the chip business, by the way. And we want them to come back. And we don't want to give them billions of dollars like this ridiculous program that Biden has. Give everybody billions of dollars. They already have billions of dollars. They've got nothing but money, Joe. They didn't need money. They needed an incentive. And the incentive is going to be they're not going to want to pay a 25, 50, or even 100% tax. They're going to build their factory with their own money. We don't have.
Donald Trump is going to continue to talk about these tariffs in a positive light, trying to use them as some sort of bargaining chip or negotiating tactic, even though we know that is not true. Tariffs only hurt the end consumer. The consumer, the American consumer, will pay higher prices if Donald Trump starts implementing 25, 50, 100% tariffs. But because Donald Trump has run on this for so long, and he needs his MAGA base to believe that tariffs are actually paid by the other countries, then he will keep on doing things like this. Because he needs his MAGA base to believe in this weird idea surrounding tariffs. And then he obviously throws in a jab to Joe Biden there, saying that, well, Joe Biden was trying to give these people incentives with money. Well, of course he was. The Chips and Science Act brought a ton of manufacturing back to our country because we understood that if you incentivize companies with some money to help them build some factories, that they would match that investment and start building factories here in the United States. But because Donald Trump is not willing to give Joe Biden a win ever, and because he needs his MAGA base to believe in the idea of tariffs, these are the types of stories that we get. And he's going to continue to make these claims over and over and over again. This is why he does these campaign-style events, because he needs his MAGA base to buy into his conspiracy worldview. That is what this is here. He then goes on to talk about how America was the most wealthy back in the 1800s. This is another claim that he continues to make.
It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. You know, the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887. And this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in.
Again, this is going and playing on that idea that tariffs are such a good thing, that the United States of America was the wealthiest it has ever been back in the 1800s, even though we know that is not true. Donald Trump has to sell this idea of tariffs because this is the type of blunt tool that he is going to try to use around the world. I mean, we've already seen this start to play out. He has threatened tariffs against Colombia, which would be detrimental for things like coffee beans and things like that. But Donald Trump turns these big complex problems into these black and white solutions. Oh, well, tariffs are good because America was the wealthiest it has ever been back in the 1800s, so that just proves it right there. And then he can just continue to spin up this lie and continue to repeat it over and over and over again. So the next time you go ask a MAGA cult follower, well, who pays the tariffs and are tariffs good? Of course, they're going to say the other country pays the tariffs. It's going to make America wealthy again. And of course, this is going to be good for me and my family. This is what Donald Trump does. It is a damn shame that it has been so effective for him to just repeat lie after lie after lie and then people just, I don't know if they are not taking this in through a critical light or what is going on here, but people have been duped. People have been majorly duped. And a lot of these policy ideas, especially tariffs, those are going to hurt some of Trump's most ardent supporters, right? If the tariffs start getting tacked on across the board and I've got to pay 25 or 50% higher prices, of course that's going to hurt lower income people who are more likely to vote for Trump. So it's really, really pernicious what is happening right here. He is selling people this worldview, saying that it's going to make their lives better, but in reality, it is just going to hurt them. And we have seen him do this over and over and over again, issue after issue after issue. That is why we come on here, we try to push back against these absurd claims, try to help people understand that this is a tactic that Trump uses to sell his false narrative to the American people. And he gets to do this over and over and over again because we have like mainstream media outlets that often carry these things uncritically. So Donald Trump just gets to live rent-free in many Americans' heads with all of these false claims attached to it. And this is how that web of lies is what is the primary thing that constructs the MAGA worldview. It's quite insane, quite insane. He then goes on to say that, everybody else is actually emptying their prisons into the United States. But who is really emptying the prisons there, Donnie?
I think, frankly, half of them are totally crazy, but they do stick together. They stick together on stuff that nobody can. I mean, how can you want prisons emptied out into our country? They stick together.
Now, obviously, it is absolutely insane that Donald Trump is trying to blame this on other countries because he is the only person who is actually emptying our prisons into the United States. Every accusation is a confession with this man. Every single time. He is the one who pardoned 1,500 people who led an insurrection against the United States of America. Even the violent ones he let out of prison. So he continues to make this claim that all these other countries are emptying their prisons into our country, but in reality, he is the only one that is actually doing that. But again, this serves a dual purpose. Donald Trump can then point at immigrants and say that they are criminals, and that gives him a pretext to carry out his mass deportations. This is just another way that Donald Trump builds up that MAGA worldview to demonize immigrants, even though he is the only one who is actually doing the thing that he is accusing all of these other countries of doing. So I thought this stuff was interesting. Obviously, it hasn't even been 2 weeks yet. And he's already doing campaign-style events. Oh, it should be mentioned that this was a GOP policy convention, and it was held at Donald Trump's own resort. Since when did that type of stuff become okay? Government employees going down to Trump's properties, funneling money into his just absolutely wild to me. But of course, he was a keynote speaker at this policy convention. Cameras were there, of course, because he is the president of the United States, and this is how he gets to live rent-free in so many Americans' minds. This is what he does. He is in campaign mode 100% of the time. And if we were smart here on the left, we would take some of these tactics and use them ourselves. The repetition of these messages is what sells these messages. I wish it weren't true, but that is just how things are playing out right now. If people hear things over and over and over and over again, especially from somebody who is a sitting president of the United States, it becomes much more believable. So, of course, we can expect Donald Trump to do these campaign-style events throughout his entire presidency, and we will be here calling him out every step of the way because at least somebody out there needs to be pushing back against this conspiracy worldview that Donald Trump has crafted for the MAGA cult. So I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We have to build something here on the left that is able to adequately push back against the piles of crap that is the right-wing media ecosystem, because they are carrying these messages for Trump and repeating them for Trump uncritically, and they are helping sell this false narrative about Trump's America. So if you do appreciate the work I do here, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see how Donald Trump is waging an absolute war on science, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.